Oh, yeah, that's the Twidware. How's everybody doing? Welcome to the Doug Rice Show. Oh, buddy boy, have I got one for you guys. I have got one for you today. Welcome to the Doug Rice Show. Thank you so much for showing up. Thank you for being here. This is the new format of the Doug Rice Show. It's me. It's me. Come look and see today. We're going to have some fun. What can I say? So, the Doug Rice Show brought to you by Twidware, Twid. Twidware, fashion, clothing. It is of high quality. The fabric that you feel when it arrives, I got to tell you, it'll come to you as quite a surprise. Really, it's that thick, that put together well, and certainly worthy of a Hebrew to sell. Remember that Twid is a woke Hebrew, and we seem to have such a time of supporting each other. And I'm hoping that each of you take a look at some of the gear, the Twid gear that we have. Just take a look at and see if you might. Forgot that it turned off my mic when I went there, but that was some of it, as you guys can see. So thanks so much for tuning in to me. I do appreciate it. I do. Hit the like, the subscribe, and the notification bell. I do not know how well that works, but hey, we'll see. Today, I came across something that you guys got to check out. Okay. Now, it suited me to want to read this because of several factors, and I want to get to it rather quickly here. It's not going to be a very long show, not at all. This is what they called a preprint. That is what they considered it, a preprint from the European Journal of Cultural Studies. Now, let me tell you what caught my eye. Okay, the folks that wrote this, Diane Negra from the University College Dublin, Ireland, and Julia Leyda, Norwegian University of Science and Technology, Trondheim, Norway, holds a special place in my heart. These individuals, this locality of tribe from Ireland and Norway, I don't know that they had as much contact with those from the Caucasus, including those that might be considered Vikings, were also a bit out of their reach. But the reason I'm kind of firm on this is because most folks in Ireland are against the current war involving the Palestinians and the Israelis, and they are firmly against the Israelis' occupation. It probably stems from the occupation they suffered at the hands of the British. They do not like limeys, the Irish. Then, of course, Miss Leyda from Norway. I have a prospective son-in-law from that neck of the woods, and a fine lad he is, not a drop of racism in his body. And I know he thinks that I'm probably crazy and half mad out of my mind. But hey, I can't fault my daughter. She is a girl of good stock and makes good decisions, and I think this kid's a good dude. So all will work out well. But the coming from these two, written from these two, this querying Karen. This is what we're going to do. The rise of the angry white woman. Querying Karen. Now, the reason I thought this was going to be cool is because the way that these writers came about, the writing and the way they put each word together, I think is quite well. Let's just go over it and you tell me what you think. First, let's define what a Karen is. A Karen in the abstract, the often mimetic figure of the white female Karen, has surged to prominence of late, moving from social media vernacular into broader usage at exactly the moment when twin crisis of public health and racial social justice have fomented momentous change and uncertainty in American life. The angry Karen is invoked to indicate her manipulation of her racial power. But she is equally significant, we suggest, for her positioning within a pre-existing antagonistic service economy. I like that. That abstract definition works well. Of course, they use the keywords in reference, the gender, the race, the consumerism, and social media. So that's how they keyworded this article so that others would find it. Now, let's get into it. The often mimetic figure of the white female Karen has surged to prominence of late, moving from social media vernacular into broader usage at exactly the moment when twin crises of public health and racial social justice have fomented momentous change and uncertainty in American life. The Karen trope crystallizes a particular constellation of entitled white supremacy and class privilege into a scathing dismissal of white female anger that deserves attention, particularly to distinguish the Karen from other targets of public opprobrium. Interesting. Seeming to have originated on Black Twitter, the Karen is identified on Wikipedia as a racist white woman who uses her privilege to demand her own way at the expense of others. Well, we have seen, all of us have seen the countless videos of Karens that have called Negroes to task for being in their vision, in their orbit, on site. I've seen Karens walk up to Negroes owning brand new homes in predominantly white neighborhoods, calling to task the audacity of that Negro to dare move his black ass into her neighborhood. I've seen it. You've seen it. We've seen it. We've all experienced it in one way, shape, or form. And we're going to look into this and see if they think it's the norm. I don't know where this is coming from. It might come from the left. So like, subscribe, and share this live before there ain't no live left. Oh, that's pretty good. Seeming to have originated on Black Twitter, like that. The rather less objective Urban Dictionary de-emphasizes race in its definition. Specifying that Karens take everything wrong with the typical over-entitled Western woman and crank it up by several 1,000%. Wow. And look at that. That is just indicative and perfectly positioned. Karen is an effective symptom of white privilege, traditional female consumer authority, and more lately, pandemic anxiety. And look at that. I mean, so many faces could go on that face. So many we've seen in so many places. It's amazing. I like that. That's cool. All right. They are a mutated subspecies that descends from the soccer mom. Both Wikipedia and Urban Dictionary entries, however, centralize the demand to speak to the manager as a hallmark of their type. I like that. The pleasure of Karens, as Hank Stuver observes, depends on their getting exactly what they've long had coming: resistance, mockery, and, in some cases, the loss of their jobs. To highlight and ridicule recurring patterns in the performance of white privilege, Karen joins popular tropes and hashtags circulating on Black Twitter and other social media, such as hashtag white tears. Many social justice activists' spaces operate under an unspoken no white tears rule, instilled because oftentimes in other spaces, your emotions and the emotions of other white people are constantly centered, nurtured, and coddled when it comes to conversations about race. Damn! They threw that right in their face. As Donella argues, white tears can be pointed but light-hearted way of asking someone to set aside their defensiveness for a moment and take part in the conversation at hand. While some white celebrity feminists are seen to perform their guilt with Twitter tears rather than engage with criticism. The 2020 boom in anti-racist reading lists following the George Floyd demonstrations elevated white sociologist and diversity training professional Robin DiAngelo's 2018 book, White Fragility, to bestseller status. Now, I do have that book, White Fragility, and I suggest all Negroes take a look. White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo, written in 2018. Now, there, of course, is always the glimmer of hope within the pages of these books, but it's still necessary to take a look because it does open the mind into their minds, and it gives good insight as to what they do, why they do it, and suggests corrective measures that I intend not to take. But that's my take on the situation. Alongside white tears and white fragility, Karen clearly fits into a genealogy in which she has come to displace Becky, an earlier slang term for a racially naive white woman, oblivious of her privilege, and widely shared explainers featured in online media such as The Root. I always recommend The Root. Cultural critics like Damon Young trace the genealogy of neologisms. That's it. And popular memes including Becky and Karen. Young explains a Becky convinces herself and attempts to convince others that her whiteness doesn't matter. A Karen doesn't even bother to fake it. A key distinction between these tropes is effective. Where the Becky and the white tear trope target performances of racial innocence and white guilt, respectively, Karen's vitriol situates herself differently. And how subtle that change from Becky to Karen went. Becky was the white girl that would use tears to get out of any legally awkward situation or otherwise. And now we have Karen that instead stands boldly in place, standing her ground, defying anyone to challenge her right to be as white as she chooses. Very interesting. Yet both the Becky and Karen memes jest about a white woman's weaponization of her privilege, employing humor to critique behaviors that may have complicated social and cultural contexts. Karen's timeliness derives from two features: her intensified role in a pandemic period in which anti-Black state violence and the vulnerability of essential, often Black and Latinx workers have come to the fore, and her association with rage and aggression. Jennifer Weiner in 2020 has identified the utility and relevance of the Karen to pandemic shaming, an emergent typalization of recognized social figures, including the anti-vaxxer who sometimes overlaps with the Karen, the white man who refuses to be emasculated by mask wearing, those guys whose potentially lethal selfishness has become a subject of urgent public concern. Tying the Karen to other destructive white female-associated behaviors, such as anti-vaxxer activism, underscores the meme's role in articulating the severity of the damage that such complaining women can accomplish by weaponizing white femininity. This was vividly showcased in the viral video standoff between a white woman, Amy Cooper, and a Black man, Christian Cooper, in New York's Central Park on 25 May 2020. That's how the Europeans describe the date and year and month. They 25 May 2020. That's a thing. Same day that police murdered George Floyd in Minneapolis, that drew wide public notice and extensive press coverage. If you remember the occurrence, folks, it's quite an event. She saw a Black man and went into hyperdrive. Panicked. She started crying. I believe she called the cops. It was a big Big deal. And of course, it was the day that George Floyd was murdered. So, she was in her feelings. Her energy was a bit off. We can understand, right? I mean, they understood, right? They didn't do anything to her, did they? Or did they? I don't know. Like, subscribe, share. Let's see what we can go. So in this Central Park, Karen refused to leash her dog as required, and Christian Cooper offered the dog a treat in the hope of compelling her to do so. In order to resume his birding activities, Amy Cooper called the police and dramatically told them she was being threatened by an African-American man. Only 2 months later, a new San Francisco law, the Karen Act, caution against racially exploited non-emergencies, codified a growing intolerance for Karen-like behavior, of which the Central Park incident has been one of the most widely reviled. A CNN news item about the law even uses the infamous image of the Central Park Karen in its illustration, demonstrating its lasting impact on U.S. society. The scorn directed at Karen occupies a space in the contemporary cultural imagination that superficially resembles the long history of stereotypes that reference the angry black woman, a disconnect that only highlights the Karen's position of power. Now that's interesting, the comparative between the angry black woman that whites have in their minds about our queens, and then against the Karen that's developed from the Becky, that evolved from the Becky that used tears, and the Karen now that uses white position as her weapon. Very interesting comparison to the two, because both exist in the minds of the beholder. All right, let me carry on before we get older. For women of color, voicing complaint often entails risk. Yes, as Sarah Ahmed in 2020 recounts in a conversation with an Indigenous woman academic, the project of surviving the violence of colonial occupation led both to complain and not to complain. Both actions, complaining and not complaining, were for her about survival, not just her own survival, but the survival of her family, her people. The legibility of the angry woman is always inflected by race, as Brittany Cooper delineates in her popular 2018 nonfiction bestseller, Eloquent Rage, linking the comic stereotype of the sassy black woman to the angry black feminist. Angry black women get dismissed all the time. We are told we are irrational, crazy, out of touch, entitled, disruptive, and not team players. Like Ahmed, Cooper alludes to the danger inherent in expressing anger while black, a very dangerous thing to do while we're on the subject, if not tempered by humor. How many of you have found yourself angry at a situation only to find yourself having to caution the expression of that anger because the consequences of expressing it as a black person, as a Negro woman, more than you might be willing to pay at the particular time. And so you have to buffer the anger against feigned humor in order to survive. How many of you have done that? Everyone has had to subject themselves to the diminishing of their expression, all to save the egos of those about us. It's a horrible circumstance. So, boom, like Ahmed, Cooper alludes to the danger inherent, right? Black women who turn to sass when rage is too risky. Wow, because we have jobs to keep, families to feed, and bills to pay. In this sense, the angry Karen is invoked to indicate her manipulation of her racial power, even as humor provides a more socially acceptable way to couch black women's anger. So white women are permitted and permissive in their ability to express as much anger as they assume, because, as we all know, there's always a white man to come to a white woman's rescue when they're at odds with anyone that is not themselves. White women, including Karens, occupy positions of privilege from which they feel free to complain, which then opens them up to being ridiculed in a way that ironically overlap with Cooper's point about the dismissal of angry black women being seen as irrational, crazy, out of touch, entitled. Thus, while both angry white women and angry black women may be caricaturized and dismissed, their positionalities in terms of racial power, geometries are critically different. That's a mouthful. This is a smart one, huh? That's interesting. So I like to really frame that statement. It's powerful, it's true. While both angry women, angry white women, and angry black women, and I like that she capitalized the black woman. I don't know why she did that. May be caricatured, not caricaturized, but that could have worked, and dismissed. Their positionalities in terms of racial power geometries are critically different. In other words, their positions of power, the response, what they're able to do with that power, even though ridiculed in both instances. I mean, I've seen it happen. The only thing that they did to offset the Karen activity was initiate a Karen Act. Now, I wonder if they'll have an act for black women. I don't know. Here we go. The application of the Karen meme to women who perform their white femininity in the ways that often literally endanger black lives, Young argues, makes it a less fallacious usage because it departs from the contemporary, contemptuous but humorous tone that drove Karen's rise to online infamy. Young indicates the misogynist dimensions of the Karen meme as another reason he believes it should be retired. I do not believe it should, but they do. It feels weird and wrong that the Karen has become the contemporary face of white supremacy, when white men are way more destructive. Listen to that admission. There's a thing happening where white women collectively seem to draw more ire and contempt than white men do, and the Karen becomes a thing in a way that the Ken never would. Now, this Young indicates that the Karen-esque stereotype should not be applied, as he indicates that white males are far more racist, but I think we know that's a lie. I think they're trying to pull back from the accusation of being as racist as the males in their nation isn't really holding much water. Clearly, Ken is doing particularly important work to mark an interface between actual or attributed middle-class white femininity and individuals or communities of color in a period in which everyday situational racisms are being increasingly called to account. She summons a boundary point between recidivist whiteness and wokeness at a time when many white people are both becoming more sensitized to racist microaggressions and put on alert to threatening breaches of public decorum. And they should be. Well, they should be. Every time one of them steps out of line, you put correction on their mind. It is apparent that Karen's utility is heightened relevance now in a pandemic moment marked by the charged nature of commercial or other social spaces. Less frequently noticed, however, may be her role in conservatively reinforcing prohibitions on white female agency in an arena in which that agency has historically been significant, that of goods and services, of shopping. Now, as a caricature of consumer entitlement, Karen is frustrated by diminished/poor service, but lacking access to any recourse in the contemporary retail environment. Her dissatisfaction is staged as a racist rant and spectacle of entitlement. Well, I don't know if it's taken out of context. I've seen Karen's rage. I always wonder what happens next. It is useful to situate Karen within a pre-existing antagonistic service economy that has become supercharged in spring of summer 2020. The consumer economy into which we have been interpolated good Lord, I don't know what that means. I do, but interpolated, in recent years has been characterized by a transfer of work from organizations to their customers, technology platforms with high failure rates, deep devotion to Byzantine bureaucratic procedures, and the conspicuous and constant valuing of high status customers over low status ones. I don't know, folks. Does it smell like she's making an excuse? I don't know. I don't think she might not be, but she could be. Let's see. The resulting commercial effective culture becomes notable for the conversation of customer service encounters to transactions routinely characterized by frustration, impotence, and fury. Under such conditions, the notion of the customer always being right now reads as quaint. Oh my goodness, I do believe she is trying to make an excuse. I almost think, it almost would appear, but I don't know, maybe it's something else I'm hearing. I don't know. It almost appears that she's saying it's the fault of the folks behind the counter that just don't really have what it takes, and understanding the customer is always right. Now it reads quaint. And so the frustration of these poor white women when they come into contact with those who are oblivious of their need to please them is now enacted and misconstrued. It's not being dissatisfied with service, it's being misconstrued as a racist attack. You know, I understand you now. No, I don't. Let's go. The new norms of customer service reflect not corporate ineptitude, but corporate calculation. The effective withdrawal of customer service is a specific and deliberate operational strategy. In the antagonistic service economy, customers must go to great lengths to seek basic information and answers to queries, and if they succeed, they are often treated with robotic indifference or a stilted hyper-courtesy that barely conceals institutional disdain. Wait, seriously? So what you're claiming, what it looks like you're leaning into, is that it's the treatment of folks who are just assumed associated with the privileged Karen-esque class. And so corporations have drawn back from serving people, being that attentive, as they too are aware that perhaps there are customers out there difficult to please, and this exacerbates Karen-like behavior? I don't think so. I don't think so. Corporations often pair a rise in service fees and other administrative charges with a turn toward the treatment of customers in this hostile fashion. Such hostility also takes the form of digital discrimination, requiring customers to use the internet who may not be in a position to do so, or who lack technical expertise to do so effectively. Waiting times to reach these companies that offer customer service by phone have soared. Oh, are you hurting? Let me tell you about first world problem. There are third world problems, and then there are first world problems. First world problems is your Uber is late. Third world problems is I might not eat this week. And I'm taking umbrage to the excuses she seeks. Maybe they're not excuses, I don't know. Maybe they have other uses, I don't know. While, of course, many firms do not make themselves available at all, proving punctilious, and that's interesting, punctilious, in ensuring that queries are unlikely to progress through a highly bureaucratic system. A landmark early millennium development in this regard was the cultivation of inaccessibility by companies such as internet-based retailer Amazon, training staff to repeat marketing mantras, and for call center workers most particularly, to speak like machines, giving pre-scripted answers that may or may not match custom query, acts as a further expression of the antagonism corporations direct toward customers, as does the automation of customer service phone banks and the outsourcing of customer service chat and email services. Corporate desire to script all encounters between patrons and staff when they cannot be eliminated act as an expression of an algorithmic culture that is intensely hostile to human diversity and messiness and flummoxed by phenomena out of compliance with models driven by the misuse of mathematics. Now, that was written by O'Neill, but I want to tell you how this is making me feel. This is interesting stuff, and it's interesting to delve into the minds of the oppressors and the minds of those who may not think as you do. If they are oppressors, they make themselves evident by what they say. But I don't know that her take on this, as she slides from white privilege, as Karen expose, into a causality of their activity and conduct. It's not okay. So I want to know where she's going. We're going to go where she's going, but let's just understand: eat the meat, spit out the bone, leave what you don't agree with alone. There we go. Like, subscribe, and share. Neoliberal capitalism's squeeze on worker-customer relations is, of course, also impacted by the decline of worker dignity and a range of abuse workplace practices. And such abuses have now become immediately life-endangering for clerks, warehouse workers, and delivery personnel, a disproportionate number of whom are Black. Uh-oh, I think she's bringing it back. Okay, let's see. At such a time, the beleaguered white female customer arises from a pre-existing sphere of increasingly combative micro-social relations in commercial sites, demanding to speak to a supervisor from whom she is highly unlikely to receive redress. She displays her lack of awareness of the shifts in commercial power roles. She articulates in the form of Karen inarticulately and with a racialized sense of privilege, the removal of customer agency and recourse in contemporary retail culture. So now it kind of brings itself together as she does not leave the retail stores blameless. She doesn't leave the folks servicing having to put up with these Karens blameless in their response. Though subtle and over time, I don't know that you can accuse or feed into the psyche of these Karens that walk about. The indifference slowly easing into the minds of the folks that work for you. I don't know, retailers. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Indeed, Young points out the irony that Karens are some of the only people who have the time to sit on hold waiting to complain to a customer service representative. Everyone knows how aggravating it is to engage customer service for any reason. You have to call, you have to wait, and you have to wait some more. By the time you're done, that 45 minutes is gone from your day. But Karens just have literally nothing else to do but be Karen. I like that. So here we have Exhibit A, Figure 2. No, I'm just kidding. Figure 2. Numerous representations of the Karen in digital culture situate her in commercial spaces, clashing with frontline workers about perceived service failures. It's interesting how she tries to mold and meld together the service failures of the retailer and somehow connect that to the minds of these privileged few that come into the stores having to put people through all they put people through. So in a circular sense, then, Karen's white middle-class privilege enables her to perform entitlement even when it costs her in terms of the time spent waiting to complain, and when, if her complaints are taken up, they are likely to negatively impact already overextended, exploited workers. Man, that's a nice little weave right there. I don't know. Long before the pandemic, consumer rage flourished, notably in the aviation industry, but also as a broader incipient public effect. Among her other functions, Karen also embodies the persistent cultural sanctions on women's anger, and she defines by opposition the preference and value accorded to white women who are accommodating rather than complaining, who perform resilience and direct their energies toward perfecting and policing their bodies, clean eaters, Peloton bike riders, rather than breaching public decorum. And so the hammer drops. This is an excuse letter. Well, not an excuse letter. She's very delicate, isn't she? The way she interweaves back and forth. She throws an occasional accusation at the Karen. She calls them to task, but then, just as you're about to nail her ass, that's when she brings up all that comes against these weak-minded creatures. And then she starts to talk about the retailer's features. You know, very interesting, right? I like it. I think that's, when you get into the mind of others, you understand how they think. Maybe it leads to nothing. We got to wait for the kingdom. Sorry about that. All right, so, sorry. Where were we at? I just want to make sure. Yes. Frequently denominated as middle-aged, Karen also reflects a long-standing patriarchal post-feminist distaste for midlife women. Thus, the whiteness of Karen is central, but her age and gender constitute an axis of ambivalence. Since they open her up to different forms of discrimination as well. Well, now, the rise of what Nelson D. Shorts denotes back in 2020, the velvet rope economy, has separated many sectors of the middle class from their traditional prerogatives of ease and access. We may note that Karen also implicitly feminizes a trope which is customarily masculine, the insecure, downwardly mobile white person who senses the ebbing of their power, authority, and security, most often conjured in representations of MAGA apparel wearing men, incels, and in British popular culture, right-wing male gamons. I like that. In this sense, Karen requires a recognition as a caricature of the new precarities of middle-class life. In her increasingly doomed efforts to exert a sense of agency in late capitalism, Karen seems to seek an ontological reassurance that consumer capitalism is on her side and on the side of whiteness. We suggest it is productive to consider the sources of Karen's misdirected anger and to deepen our sense of why she exercises such a strong hold on the public imagination. I got to tell you, this is a very insightful, very interesting read. I really like where it went. I think it's exactly what we need. That's the end of it. There's no more. That's the end. I just wanted to take the time to get that out. I thought it was a very, very interesting read, of that I have no doubt. I hope that you folks support this effort. I'll be at this again today. I'll be sending another live your way. I'm going to be doing this until you folks hear me. Go to twidware.com. Just hear me again. All right. So did you like that? I liked it too. I thought it was very cool. I thought it was very, very cool. I liked it. It was awesome. So we're going to be doing that as often as we can. Remember to like, subscribe, share, all the things you want to do. Also, we have the areas that can help you give so that I can pay bills and still live. There they are right there below. You see them right there. Go ahead and take care of that. If you have something that you want me to go over, be sure to email me or contact Katrina through chat. If you have a suggested PDF, I'll read it like that. I appreciate you guys taking a look. Please do me a favor. First, like, subscribe, but more importantly, share this live. I want you to also go to twidware.com. That is the official sponsor. This show, The Doug Rice Show, is brought to you by Twidware. And there it is right there. All right, so there I have it. There you have it. That's it. I don't want to get stuck in a rut. I don't want to do that. And so you understand I want you not to be grinning and skinning and cheesing and pleasing. And, I'm not interested in you doing that. There's no reason for Negroes to do that. So I want to kind of change things up just a little bit. When you talk about twidware, twidware has an acronym. That's what I do. So you heard what I said, because that's what I do. We'll try it out. It'll work one day. No, we'll try. It'll work. Relax. Get that goddamn grin off your face. Stop smiling. Have a good day, folks. Gotta save the voice. Save the jokes. All right, 5, 4, 3, 2. I'm out. Bye-bye. Oh, start the music. All right, have a good one.